All right. And I believe we are live.
We are
So
live.
we get Christy a minute here and we will get trucking along.
All right. I want to welcome everybody back to the Unlock Your Culture webcast. So we're on, this is our third official, second real, and we're already having the wheels fall off the train.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the half a episode to go with the initial first half a episode, the way it's stacking up.
So it happens. We were supposed to have Ryan Pennington in on tonight, and unfortunately he got called into work. They're short-staffed due to the ongoing, I think there's a pandemic out there, right?
yeah, some sickness or something. And I want to stress short staffing. They're down like an entire, like two stations, I think, right now worth of people. Obviously I told Ryan, the mission comes first. Otherwise doing this is, basically pointless, right? What are we talking about if we're not talking about, doing the job first? We will get Ryan on. I'm sorry. We kind of had short notice. I didn't even have time to share with everybody what was going on.
Yeah, we just
So
basically got the text and like, oh, by the way, this is what's going on.
yeah, so we apologize for that, but we will definitely have Ryan rescheduled on a date and time where it's more conducive to his department staffing. And then unfortunately, Duffy had to bail tonight too. He's been traveling and teaching so much. He needed some time with his ladies at the house there. So obviously, we understand that one too. So we're trying to get Pablo up, but pretty much roundtable night with me and John. So it may work to your advantage. So we're just gonna kind of, I guess, what John, throw some topics out there tonight and see where the conversation takes us.
You know what? I think that's a great idea. That's probably one of my most fun type of drills is just a round table. Sit down and say, hey guys, what do you want to talk about? And again, a lot of times you tend to get the what's going on in the environment. Well, obviously COVID's going around right now, so that's the environment that we're dealing with, or some sort of interesting call that went on. New York City a couple weeks ago did another rooftop pickoff off a 16th floor. So that was a really good conversation we had at work because we actually use the FDNY bags for the rooftop pickoff stuff. But let's throw it out tonight. I'd love that if Ryan was here, and it would be cool if Sean was here. But you know what? Sometimes it happens. Family first, all right? Because without them, we're nothing, right? And I'm going to say it. I got lucky enough to get away this weekend, and my daughter calls out of the blue. Our daughter calls out of the blue. Hey, I want to come up. I want to hang out with you guys. How often does a 22-year-old call and say, hey, I want to come and hang out? So it was really cool to see her. Some background on her, if I haven't put it out there. She's in her now second week of the police academy up in Connecticut. So it's really cool to see her and see her getting her mission going in life and what she wants. She's always said she wanted to be a police officer ever since she was little. I really didn't believe it. I thought she was going to go CIA because she can definitely torture people. And but it was awesome. She came up. We were talking about cool things. Being a dad and explaining the job with what I'm on, and talking about the similarities between police and fire. But it was definitely cool. But again, family first, and without family, we're nothing. But anybody want to talk about something tonight? Let's do a roundtable.
Yeah, somebody's got something, and I'll tell you this before we even roll the circle dice around. I get this is recorded, and what we kind of talked about last time was that we understand that it's going to be on YouTube, so maybe there's things that need to wait until after recording turns off, and we're cool with that. We respect your privacy, we respect your career by all means, but don't be scared to talk, or even if it's just something you're curious about and you'd rather listen to us talk. We're a little braver, I guess, than some people are, but
braver.
We're happy to talk about anything.
Yeah, again, don't get yourself in a jam or a jackpot or anything else. And let's. I
think we got Pablo on now. Pablo, you make it?
I think he's working on it.
He's in here, so that's a plus.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I'll take 3 out of 4. That's good.
So if Pablo's in here, let's throw it to him because he got here late.
Can you hear me?
I got you, Pablo. So let's talk. You've been doing some killer workouts, dude, lately. You want to talk about some of them?
Yeah, brother, absolutely. We could we start the discussion on physical fitness in the firehouse and And I think the correlation to being what I believe is a tactical athlete. Uh, there are guys and gals out there. I'm sorry, that feel like all you got to do is run, like 30, 40 miles, whatever. You're like the greatest athlete in the world, but you're not necessarily, you don't take classes. You're not a good tactician, et cetera, et cetera. And then there are people on the other end of the spectrum where they'll take 100 classes a year. They'll go to conferences. They'll do all this type of stuff, but they're out of shape. A long time ago, a good friend of mine down here in Hillsborough County, by the name of Jason Lynn, he's with the Cigar City Fools, said something so poignant to me that I'll always take with me. He goes, "Don't be afraid to straddle the fence and see both sides of the issue and never apologize for it." And so I take that, and as far as like physical fitness is concerned, I want to be a tactical athlete. I want to be able to work in bunker gear for hours. I want to be able to stay healthy for myself, for the like longevity of my career, for my family, et cetera, et cetera. But I also want to be a good tactician. I strive to take classes. I strive to pick the brains of men and women that do this and do this at a high level. And I think that there has to be a good foundation, a good correlation between the two. We have to be able to sit on both sides of the fence and look at each other's yard and say, all right, well, I could do that and I could do this, and not just lay on one side of the fence.
I absolutely agree with you, Pablo, with that. It's there's definitely got to be a balance between the tactical education experience aspect and the physical. I might not be the tallest guy or the strongest guy, but I've learned some of the techniques on doing things. And I learned, I learned that a lot when we were doing the safety and survival stuff, managing our maydays and stuff like that. And first of all, the self-rescue and stuff, but then getting our guys out with the RIT training or rapid intervention team, whatever, RIC fast, whatever the acronym it is now. But again, it's a lot of technique, but it's also taking care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be going down the road. And it's interesting. And I'll come back to where we're at right now. We're in the pandemic issue. How many guys are actually taking supplements? Who's taking the vitamins?
Yeah.
What are they saying? And I'm going to put it out there. It's going to be C, D, and zinc. Take your multis and stuff like that. Are we actually taking care of ourselves, or are we doing the border minimum?
Right.
Are we drinking enough water? And I got my water in here because I know I'm not hydrated enough as I should be. But these are things that we have to do. These are the small things before we get to the crazy workouts. I can't call them crazy. The intense workouts that you do, Pablo.
Right.
So
absolutely.
What do you do to set yourself up for those type of workouts?
Hydrate. Well, I'm glad to announce, before I even get to what I'm about to say next, one of the things that I cut out was liquor. I don't drink anymore. I'm about 3 months sober now. And I love it. I feel good. I feel much better. I hydrate a lot. I drink about I don't want to say a full gallon of water a day, but I try to drink about 3/4 of a gallon a day of water. I do take my supplements, high protein, before I started getting into like quote unquote, that's a good word, crazy workouts or more intense workouts. I definitely started slow. You can't just dive into the deep end of the pool without knowing how to swim first, or at least know what the water feels like. So just little by little, little workouts here and there, and just intensifying the workouts as I go. One of the things that was an inspiration to me was a couple months ago. We did we helped a brother of mine from West Palm Beach Fire Department. He used to work here in Marion County, by the name of Julian Serrano. And Julian did a 100-mile run in 24 hours for a fallen brother of ours, to raise awareness for PTSD and mental health. And for the Emilio Rivera Foundation, he did a 100-mile run in 24 hours. And we, a group of brothers, and including myself, I played a small role. A lot of the other guys played a bigger role in helping him out. But we helped him out running the 24 hours essentially, just, you know, like, and that was one of the craziest feats of human achievement that I've ever seen, man. And seeing that guy just battle through was a beautiful feat. So that kind of just propelled me to say, hey, man, I need to start, you know, can I tap into my own potential here, you know? That was great to see. So ever since then, I've just been slowly working at it and working at it and working at it and just getting better as I go. Hopefully, or at least I think I am anyway.
Hey, so let me throw this at you, Pablo, because it's kind of, you know, what you're saying brings up a point I see a lot of with the working out. And it's funny because it's almost like the people who work out at the fire department get shit on more than everybody else, which you would think it would be the opposite with the nature of our work. But something that I've noticed, and when people ask me, you know, I'm nowhere near what you're doing. You know, I posted a silly little workout that we did, which is, I guess, better than doing nothing a lot of the time. But a lot of people, I think they just don't know where to start, right? And we talk fitness, everybody thinks, you know, six packs and, you know, bulging veins and small waistlines. And some of the most fit guys I've ever worked around, you know, carried the wrong kind of six pack, right, in their gut. But they were strong, right? So can you speak to maybe just, you know, for people that are on the fence, just maybe don't know what to do, maybe, you know, some ideas or some resources to where, you know, when they're just at work or even on their off time, if they're not comfortable doing at work, you know, how do you go from unfit to even just trying to get fit? Because it seems to me the message out there is so far apart. It's like people are unfit or people are on like this way high level of fitness.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. You know, one of the things that comes right up to mind, and I don't know him, by the way. I'm gonna give him a shout out and a plug. And I've never met personally, but Pip from 555 Fitness,
Right.
Man, about I want to say maybe about 8 or 9 months ago, he was on Ryan's podcast. Ironically, throwing a little plug out there for Ryan that he was supposed to be here tonight, but obviously COVID hit and he's working. But he said, man, just go out there and run a mile a day. Run a mile a day. And I, for whatever reason, I was like, you know what, man, I'm going to try that because I hate running. And started running a mile a day. And man, I shit you not, it's weird because I'll never post. I try not to post like selfies or nothing like that on social media. I just personally find that weird. But if I were to post a selfie of myself about a year and a half ago, man, I was borderline fat. I did not like myself. And I started doing that, you know, like just run a mile a day thing, because that's something that you can do at home on your own. It doesn't have to be a 6-minute mile. It doesn't have to be a 7-minute mile. It doesn't matter. As long as you run a mile a day, and then you just healthier and drinking more water, it just, you literally just start seeing yourself get healthier. Then I just went to the gym and started just once again running a mile a day and getting my workout in. And then that's Jack saying hi. Then I incorporated other things as I went throughout. But the truth of the matter is I started with a mile a day, just a mile a day. And that happened. I hope he sees this because, like I said, I've never met him, but that happened through the 555 Fitness with Pip saying a mile a day.
Pip is a really good inspiration. He's up here in Jersey. He as a lieutenant in New Brunswick Fire Department, and Pip's a great guy. It's fortunate to see him out at the conferences, but unfortunately, with everything going on, we've been nobody's seen each other. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but no, Pip's a giant inspiration, and he's great for starting small. You know, and I won't break his chops because I'm only about half an inch taller than him, but his mohawk is definitely taller than mine. But he's right. You start small and then you work up from there.
Yeah, that's absolutely. You know, and with the old saying, how do you eat an elephant? You know, one bite at a time. You know, if you wake up in the morning and you're like, oh, all of a sudden tomorrow I'm going to run a 5K and I'm going to have a slim waist and I'm going to be able to work in gear and stuff like that. That doesn't really doesn't hold true sometimes. So I do have my own training gear that I've had over the years here. That and gear is definitely an equalizer, is a game changer. So I try to work out in gear as much as I can. Sometimes I just do regular PT clothes, but I try to work out in gear. And legitimately, I try to make myself uncomfortable, man. It's so it's so easy to just do it because it's uncomfortable. It's so easy to just sit on the couch, or it's easy to to watch a movie, or like last night, for example, I was somewhere and we could have easily ate bad, but like I just chose not to. I was like, oh, I'm just gonna eat the salad and the meat. So it's all about choices. Everybody makes their own choices, and it's just a matter of like how far down the rabbit hole you want to get.
Yeah, I think to add on to that too, man, I want to say it was Sparrow gave us the advice when we did the Unlock Your Culture conference. It's just that, you know, it's not always about competing with each other. It's not always about, weight or time or stuff. It's about feeling better, or you were able to do more on that cylinder, right? Or, you know, noticing a change in your body, maybe not necessarily weight, but like, hey, your pants weren't as tight today, or you had to snug down the belt a little more. And I think people are so focused on those numerical things that society's taught us, right? Like, if you don't do 25 push-ups in a minute, you're wrong. Well, if you did 6 yesterday and you did 8 today, that's progress to me. And we miss a lot of those opportunities. Yep. I know with our crew, that's what we focus on, is just supporting each other. And like, hey, if somebody does anything better, a second better on your run is a second better, right? So, don't swing for that grand slam, that sack fly is just important sometimes. So, be better for the team.
100%. That's something that I preach whenever I'm at the gym. I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to be able to work also for whomever doesn't know out there. I work for Marion County Fire Rescue here in the state of Florida, and in Marion County we have we're blessed enough to have our own facility, our own gym here, and it's Marion County Health and Wellness Center. And one of the things that I preach when I'm there is, it doesn't, I don't expect anybody to go in there and run a 6-minute mile. It doesn't matter. At the end of our mile, whether I run a 6-minute and you run a 12-minute, at the end of our mile, if we're both getting off the treadmill, or we're both finishing the mile, and we're both sweaty, we're both at a heart rate of 130, 120, 130, we're both gasping for air. That means that we both did the workout. We both accomplished what we needed to do for our bodies to make it that much fitter for the next day. So yeah, 100%, I agree with that. Yep.
So I want to throw something out at you. How do you influence the crew to train, or the company to train? How did it start small, or obviously it starts small, but how'd you get him to buy in? What's the buy-in on that? And I got a follow-up question regarding injuries.
If I may interject, if I may answer that one, to me, just first of all, leadership plays a big role. I'm blessed to have Tony Gillen as my lieutenant, and Tony was the Marion County Fools president here. He no longer is the president as the clock turned. He served as the president here for about 6 or 7 years, and he is my lieutenant, and he's still a Fool. So to have that type of leadership is great, because obviously leadership influences the rest of the crew. That's first and foremost. Second, I don't think motivation should always come just by going out and doing it, and having, 1 or 2 members of the crew just going out and doing it, and hopefully the other ones will join in, and if they don't join in, I think the key thing is never to go back in there and belittle them or berate them or make them feel bad or nothing along those lines. I think, so Jim McCormack said this one time at a conference, and man, I just little quotes that stick with me forever are, what type of leader are you? Are you the guy that goes to church quietly on Sundays and, goes and takes his family and goes back and he's a God-fearing man and everybody knows he goes to church, and every once in a while you'll probably influence someone to go with you? Or are you the guy that's sitting in the street corner, with a bullhorn and a sign saying, Jesus is coming, repent for your sins, and I thought Jim's quote was great, because he says, both of them are God-fearing men. Both of them are going to church. Both of them are influencing people, but one of them is probably scaring some people out of going, as opposed to influencing them to going. So to put that analogy back into our fire service, it's the same thing. Whether it be training throwing ladders for the day, or training going out and getting a workout in for the day, we can't be the guy with the bullhorn in the bay, opening up the door saying, hey, what the fuck are you guys doing? Get up from the recliner. You know, no, that's not going to work. You have to be able to either show it with just your own motivation, or, you know, or just find a softer approach. But to me personally, what works is just going out and doing it. And I don't want to, I hate the phrase leading by example, but just doing it yourself first, and then hopefully the guys will join in.
Yeah, it tends to be like that buy-in issue of drilling. And, you know, sometimes you're doing the extra drill of the day with the rookie, and then eventually you turn around and you got more guys there than probably at the original drill, because everybody was out on a run. But it's interesting that guys are watching and they want to learn and they wanted to participate. Marc, you want to touch base on that, on how you get crew involvement?
Yeah, it kind of ties into where I want it to go, and, you know, we ain't got to go down this road right now, but maybe just plant the seed for it later on in the conversation here. But, you know, I think the leadership thing to me has kind of sort of come around full circle, and kind of like, you know, Pablo said, lead by example, right? I've heard that for the past decade, you know, be a servant leader, lead by example, be out in front, you know, show the crew. But something I've been talking to a lot of people about lately is maybe the absence of followership in that equation. And, you know, I think what I see right now, and fitness is just one aspect of that, and training, everything else, I see a lot of really good people that are motivated, that are into the job, that train, they do the right things, they go to the right classes, and they can't get the buy-in. And it's because the burden is on their shoulders. And somehow this conversation has totally flipped from servant leadership to almost something, you know, complete opposite, where, you know, it's entirely on the company officer or the chief officer to do everything now, and everybody else is just kind of in limbo. So, you know, I think it's worth mentioning, and like I said, I'd rather dive into this later, but it just kind of came up. But, you know, especially with fitness and training, is that for the younger firefighters or the less experienced firefighters, wherever you fall in that, and even the older ones and the superior officers, is that everybody has a followership aspect to that at some point, right? Like, if we're all leaders, if everybody on the roster is, you know, considered the formal leader, then you're just competing with each other to a point where it doesn't make sense. So at what point, you know, do we recognize that there is a follower aspect, right? Like, somebody has to emulate you at some point. And to me, where I'm trying to go with the conversation, and where my work is shifting now, is, you know, the initial step of being a leader is being a follower first, because that's where you learn how to lead. That's where you learn these characteristics and these techniques and these personalities. So
100%.
I hope that fits in with what we're talking about. I didn't mean to kind of, you know, get the foul ball down the line, but yeah, I think it's almost becoming toxic on the servant leader side, where people have so much pressure on them and so much burden. And then, you know, a subordinate, which, you know, apparently is a dirty word now, right? But the people that work for you, they literally have no mandate anymore. It's just, oh, well, you know, we don't have to train unless captain wants to train. Oh, we don't have to wash the rig unless lieutenant wants to, you know. So the accountability thing, I think, has shrunk just to leadership, and it's really only a small smidgen of that conversation.
I know we'll leave the fitness aspect on that, but it's important to empower your people, you know, give them the opportunity to make the decisions. And I think that as leaders, and like you said, if you have those type A personalities all in the room, and somebody's going to be better than one thing than the other. So it's sort of, I don't know if I'm going down a rabbit hole right here, but whoever's the one that's got that specialty in whatever area you're going down, they should be the one stepping up. And everybody else, if you are a quote unquote leader, you should recognize that, hey, this guy's got the gift for, let's say, technical rescue, ropes. We'll just throw that there. Step back. Hey, you know what? I'm a leader for something else. I love my truck work. I do my through the lock stuff. So I'm going to step up when it comes to that. But I got to know that as a leader in the fire service, that I got to be a follower too, and follow this guy, because this guy knows a lot more about ropes and about how to do tie offs and all that other stuff that I don't. And we need that. And I think the pride and ownership aspect needs to come back to the fire service. And I think that starts with the officer taking pride in what they do, and again, leading by example, but showing that pride. You know, are you the officer that does your rig check, or are you the officer that sits and grabs coffee as the rig gets checked?
Right.
No answers, not putting anybody down, but what are you doing? Are you setting the proper tone for the day, because you know what? I'm in a bigger house. I've got 2 engines and a ladder, and I got headquarters where I'm at. Some of those stations just have a single engine. And if that single engine, if they see that the officer, all he does is delegate off and not do what his job is, where are they going to be down the line when those guys get promoted to an officer? What are they going to do? They're going to do exactly what their officer did because they weren't taught properly.
Absolutely.
All right.
I think morale has a lot to do with it too.
Absolutely. Who's that, Alan?
Yep.
Thanks for jumping in. So, yeah, exactly. Morale. And where does the morale start from? Where do you think? Top or bottom? Or middle?
I would like to think it starts at the top and works its way down, but can also go the other way. Like my experience right now in my station, on my shift, I have a lieutenant and myself, and basically every other shift we're getting another driver, another rider, or another medic on the medic truck. We don't have a set crew. It's only because of our staffing. So, you kind of walk in, like my shift goes on tomorrow. I have no idea who the chauffeur on the engine's going to be, the rider. I'm lucky enough to know who my partner's going to be on the med truck. But, it gets to a point where you really can't set, it's hard to establish a routine when you don't have consistency and manpower.
Alan, I absolutely agree with you. The aspect of firemen, we love consistency, right? We like things the same. We don't like change. We hear that all the time. But it's tough not knowing what you're going to do for that next 24 or 48. Again, we're going to answer calls. We're going to go. We know what we're going to do, but that interpersonal relationships between our peers and our subordinates and our bosses, you don't know who you're going to be dealing with or what position you're in on that pecking order changes things. Going in, so you've already got this going on in your head before you hit the bell at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? Mm-hmm. You're driving into work going, all right, well, who am I with today? And we talk, I know I've talked with Pip on his show about some size up stuff, talk about sizing up your crews and your guys. Your crews change from day to day. It could be hourly on a cover at times, or if somebody goes home sick or hurt or emergency. So you're absolutely right. I like to see the morale start at the middle level and have it go up. I agree and I believe wholeheartedly that the first line supervisors have the pulse of the fire department and they control that pulse.
Interesting. Okay.
What did Chief LeBlanc tell us, right? Like more or less he summed it up with, by the time it gets to me at the top, it's too late basically, right? Like how many other things could have occurred down the line before it got to the fire chief? If you're looking for the fire chief to fix morale in your department, right, you've already failed. And that's, I sum it up like this, John, right? I think it's everybody's. I think the whole finger point with morale is counterproductive, right? It's the new guy's job. It's the senior guy's job. It's the company officer's job. It's the battalion's job. It's admin. It's everybody's job, right? We're supposed to be a family, but this is another one of these things where we play this finger point game where it's, oh, well, our department sucks because our chief sucks, or, oh, well, our new guys don't get it, so our department sucks, or our company officer weak. Well, again, when are we going to take the personal responsibility? And I had this conversation literally with somebody last night, and I said, look, as frustrating as it is, what can you control and what you can't? And if you're not starting with what you can control, then you're never going to even invade the space of the things that you probably can't control, right, as far as influence those people. And that's the hard part, right? It's easy to deflect. It's hard to be introspective and figure out where you're lacking, kind of like you said, like, what tone does the company officer set? It's easy to say that, oh, the crew is slacking, but, who are they watching and where are they learning that from?
Mm-hmm. And you exactly hit it. I used to call it the sphere of influence. I can only influence so many at the rank or position that I'm at. And as you move up the chain, your sphere increases, but also your responsibilities increase. So your ability to influence sometimes diminishes. There's sort of a dichotomy there. If anybody listened or read the Dichotomy book by Jocko, he talks about giving these guys the okay to do company pride with a patch, but certain patches weren't okay and they had to go with certain things. Again, the pride is important, but it's got to be the right pride and done the right way.
Right.
Yeah, agreed. That's a hard sell sometimes too, right? Because, and I've been there. I've been the guy that's, hey, the whole company bought into this logo, right? And we sent it up the chain, and it got to the top, and they're like, are you kidding? Like, you look like a bunch of kindergartners, and we're sitting here like, oh, this is crap, blah, blah. And then, you really got to step back. And it's funny, when we finally got to what we ended up, getting approved, I look back at the original draft, and I'm like, man, I can't believe we were ballsy enough to send this up. Like, this is horrible. We were all, rallied behind it. And, sometimes I think that's what the top's job is to just kind of, tell you to sit down for a second and reconsider what's going on from a perspective outside of yourself. Because if it was up to the rank and file, right, we're rowdy, we're blue collar, right? We come up with some stuff that probably isn't the best image that we're looking for, as an occupation. So.
Yeah, rude and crude's not going to get you anywhere. And again, and you just hit on it. Take that step back, and I think that's part of the best part of officers need to understand that they need to step back sometimes. They can't be on that front line of, and let me finish my thought. They can't be on the front line of the firefight at times. They got to take back and look at that wider picture. If we're just looking at that front door of the house, right? We got flames coming out the front door of the house. If we're looking right at that, but now we got to see, hey, we got flames coming out the B and the D sides, or the 2 and the 4 sides, depends upon where you are in this country, which numbers or letters. It's you got to look at that bigger picture, because if you looked at the one thing, our job is as a nozzleman, hey, I got to go through that front door. Front door, we got to put that fire out. We got to do this. Compared to the officer or initial arriving officer looking at the bigger picture of, hey, we got flames everywhere. Where do we have to put that first line to make the most effective knock on this, or to prevent the largest loss of life, or to protect the most amount of life? You start reading stuff from Norman, his first couple chapters in his books and stuff like that. And they talk about that. You got to do the prioritize and figure out what you've got. And as much as officers like to be with their guys and enjoying and having fun, again, drawing out whatever crazy logo that we like, but we got to take a step back and look, is it part of the mission? Does it paint us in a better light?
Yeah.
Or do we look like we're just kindergartners with crayons and drawing some crazy pictures?
Right.
True. So, and I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole off of that one, because I think
Okay.
The career guys, we're kind of I don't really think we understand our audience a lot of time, and I'm not sure with the list of people here, but I can tell you from my following on social media and the pages I follow, I think the volunteer side is getting forgot in a lot of what we're talking about, right? And this is where I say we're so spoiled on the career side, right? We're sitting here talking about fitness, right? We got to fit a workout into our shift, and Pablo's getting a friggin' facility built, right? And we got guys that are still doing fundraisers to put fuel in their trucks, right?
Yeah.
And they have to do it at home. That's just another hour out of their week they're already giving up. And then you talk about the company officers, right, and being with your crew, and you've literally got chiefs and buggies carrying hose packs waiting on the rig to get there in some of these jurisdictions. So when we talk about morale and fitness and leadership and followership, what are your guys' thoughts on the volunteer side? Because I can tell you, I've been volunteering again for about a year, and I went out there, and me and the chief were familiar. We worked on the medic together, back in the day, and it was, don't worry, chief, it's a 2 training, two shift minimum for, small combination. I'll be out here, no problem. And it's all I can do to get out there for 2 days, right? And I only work 10 days a month. So I can't imagine having a 9 to 5. So, what's your thoughts for the other, 75% of the fire service, right, as far as stuff goes? Because I just feel like, as much as we've talked, and even when I do classes and stuff, it's real easy as a career guy to think what you're talking about for the fire service as a whole, but I don't know that it really translates to the volunteer side so much.
I'm fortunate to have started out in the volunteers. I did about 7 years before I got hired. Before I got hired in Passaic, and that set a great foundation for me. I was lucky enough to already have some my fire officer level 1. I was my instructor by the time I came out, and I was an arson investigator. So I had some classes under my belt and stuff like that before I became career, but that set a giant foundation. And there is definitely a mismatch at times between career and volunteer, because I find I'm going to say it's harder for the volunteers, and we've got a class coming up. We're teaching on Tuesday. We're doing commanding our first 30 minutes, and they're like, hey, we want to talk about. You never know who's going to show up.
Yep.
We don't know who's going to show up. You don't know which rig's going to be out first, especially if you have a larger town and you have multiple stations. Which rig's getting out first? How do you guys communicate?
Mhm.
So those are concepts and things like, hey, are we rolling with one or two? And if we are, what's the qualifications? What about the guy in the right front seat talking on the radio?
Yeah.
Is he or she an officer? Are they passed? Do they have the certifications that's required? Or are they just riding that seat just so they can get on scene to do what they've got to do to meet up with everybody else that may be on scene,
Yeah.
which is a whole nother animal.
The bulk of my first 2 years was probably a past chief, right? And it's the age old small town daytime crew, right? It's the retired guys and the students. So it would be a couple 18, 19-year-old kids, and we're fighting to see who talks on the radio today because we want to be cool, right? And then you got some past chief babysitting us who's the only apparatus operator driving us to the call, right? And then he's trying to IC from the panel or from the rig when we get there. But that's, I think, like you said, right? We have company officers, and I'm not, I'm not going to knock the volunteer departments with the way some of the officers are elected, right? Maybe they're, just popular but not qualified, or maybe they are qualified. It doesn't matter. The fact remains, I bet
They're
you
not there all the time. They
yeah,
can't be there all the
and if
time.
it's nighttime, you're probably not getting a bunch of company officers on the volunteer side, right? So, and like you said, you don't really have a choice. So you're already behind the 8 ball, right? So, and then think about training. You got one training a week. Who shows up, and then you've got maybe 3 hours. That includes like the briefing, going to wherever you're going to train, the training, the cleanup, and then getting the rigs back in order again. I mean, what are you getting? An hour of quality training if you're really high speed. So, like I said, I didn't want to spend a bunch of time on it, but I think with our audiences, it's important to just acknowledge to the guys that volunteer, like, we understand that we probably have it much easier on the career side, and we seem to be the whiniest, I think, at times, boo-hoo, people, life is hard. And, I just don't think we understand the other side all the time.
So, Mark, you described exactly what my dad's doing. My dad is retired. He's in his 70s. He's the first due apparatus driver.
Absolutely.
And, and during the daytime, they got some college students that are around, but that's what you've got. And it's limited manpower, limited staffing. And it's tough to get your qualifications in there and to see what kind of crew that you have. You might be showing up with guys with no experience. So now my dad's telling me about, he went to a call one time at a nursing home, and it was activated fire alarm. They pull up and they got a light smoke condition on the top floor. Now he's packing up. And now I'm like going, what are you doing, Dad? Even though I've packed, crawled down hallways with him, I really don't want to see my father crawling down a hallway at the age of 70 with a pack on his back,
Mm-hmm.
And those are some really tough questions for the powers to be in the volunteer side. How do you get that recruitment, retention, and keep the pride and continue the training? I think EJ's in here, my buddy from Pennsylvania. EJ, want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you, bud.
All right, cool. First of all, I just want to say thanks to Marc for throwing the shout out to the volunteers, because, not that they are, forgotten, but, a lot of these conversations, the majority of the guys are career, so that's where it's going to be. I always understand it, but, I always appreciate it when this side of it's thrown in. And, yeah, it is tough. I know for me, I've been kind of struggling this year. I haven't really been that active. I don't know that that's boding well for me, but it's just a byproduct of life, and then I'm up against, we have, I don't know, like 8 guys that work for our township, and our township lets them respond during work days, which is great. So we have a daytime crew, so we're always getting something out. But, so then you end up with this little kind of, this small clique of guys, that run together all the time. And like I said, it's a good thing, but then it kind of seems like I don't know, makes me kind of feel like I'm on the outs sometimes. So it's weird. And training is training is interesting. And one of the big things is, yeah, you don't know who you're going to have that night when you show up. I'm a former scout leader, so I ran into that problem all the time. I'd have a great meeting idea planned, and we'd be focusing on like the first year kids, and the older kids would teach them, and then we show up for meeting night, and like one of the new kids was there. So luckily that trained me to be very flexible and always have a backup or be able to switch gears. But yeah, it's tough. It's really tough.
So the click issue is, I'll say it right now, it happens within the career side and the volunteer side. You get your crews that are tight, and in the volunteer side, you're going to get your guys that ride all the time together. Just like you said, you get your guys that are your daytime crew. I was called that for a while because I was going to college only a couple days a week, and so I was available certain days. So I was part of that daytime crew at times. At my volunteer department when I was in college many years ago. But those are the people that you sort of rely on in order to get the job done. And it's interesting, I guess, as time goes by, those faces and names change because we sort of age out, right? So you saw the guys that when you first get on that were always there, and then they got married, had a family, and sort of that pulls them away. Again, I'd love to be more active in my volunteer fire department, but it's tough. Mark, you said it. You're trying to do it, and you're working 10 days a week. 10 days a month. I'm working 8 days a month with everything else going on, and it's just tough. I don't understand the 9 to 5, or now with the families, with parents working 2 jobs and kids doing sports. Well, sports sort of is taking a back step with this past year, but 2020 is an anomaly. I thank God. But it's how do you get that? How do you continue that proper training and instill the passion and the pride in the fire service for a service that's just it's tough. It's just an uphill battle. Anybody else want to talk on that or no?
Well, I
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it varies from place to place. Like Mark could tell you, the state of Georgia requires, what's it, Mark, 140 hours?
Yes, I wish I could tell you with great certainty, but it's nowhere near what most places require.
Yeah, I mean, they require it whether you're career or volunteer, and a lot of places just the membership can't dedicate the time to spending that much time in the firehouse and training. And with the way things are now, you have people who are working multiple jobs. I used to volunteer in the same place that Mark's volunteering now, and I had to take a step back to help a friend start up a business. And now with our manning in my career department, I'm either doing 24s or 48s. And after doing a 48-hour shift, do you really have the energy to go that little further, to go down to the firehouse and train? I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, my first day off, I'm totally useless. I mean, I'm shot.
Well, and I think it depends too, right? And so, Alan and I kind of have a similar background where like we have the Northeast, volunteer experience, and then the Southeast one. And I think the trick with the volunteer side too, and, EJ, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but there is just so many, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, organizational structures, for lack of something better, right? But there's so many layouts for a volunteer department now, right? Most of the stuff down here, if it's rural, it's all volunteer. If it's suburban or semi-rural, it's some kind of combination thing, right? Which to me is the worst because, it's always this battle between the career and the volunteer side, and nobody's really, got a place. But, in the Northeast, it's, you volunteer where you work, maybe, or where you live, maybe you work somewhere else, but it's that small town mentality. Tell people kind of turn out and stuff. But, to go with the theme we would have had with Ryan, right, being positive or aggressively positive, right, like a lot of good comes out of that too. And I can tell you that, when I was young starting out, like I got so much experience that I wouldn't probably get on got to do all these things because it was me and a couple kids and a past chief riding around, right? And it was a different day crew versus the nighttime crew. But when that nighttime crew came in, they polished all this rough stuff you kind of figured out on your own during the day, right? And these were the guys that worked at another fire department full time or had been there for 20, 30 years, right? But I'll tell you one thing that I missed the most about the all 100% volunteer department was that, you know, you could kind of fit it into your schedule, right? We had formal training once a week at 7 o'clock, and sometimes we had a Saturday deal. But, you know, once the kids, you know, I didn't have kids then, but, you know, that time of night, right, 9, 10 o'clock, the firehouse is open. If you want to go up there and pull lines till 1 a.m., there's nobody stopping. You're not keeping nobody awake. You're not, you know, what will the citizens think? You got that firehouse to yourself, right? You got the rigs to yourself. You need somebody qualified to drive, and you can set your own training. You can call 2 or 3 guys up and say, hey, you know, meet me out at the training pad or meet me out at the school. So in a lot of ways, there are advantages to that stuff. Now, I think the COVID era is a whole different beast because, you know, so many places can't even train right now with social distancing and stuff. But, you know, it's like anything else. I think it's easy to look at it negatively, and anybody who knows me will know that I'm more talented at that most times than looking at the positive side of things. But I think if you really sit down and look at it, you know, there are some positive sides. And as John said, and as most of us, you know, have that same experience, that most of us started as a volunteer somewhere. And I dread the day that we figure out that, you know, the system that's in place now is not going to survive another decade or two, and what is that going to happen? And I see it happening already, you know, with the new people coming in that don't have that background, that come from Sam's Club and Sonic and, you know, Chick-fil-A, and I think that's where a lot of the buy-in is lost because it's not passed down to them early, and all they have is that fire academy. So but yeah, I don't know, EJ, I think you'd be a good one to speak to that though, but I think the makeup of that department is different too. If you have a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday paid driver versus one paid crew in a combination versus 100% volunteer, you know, how that translates, you know, to the morale side.
Yeah, I know where I'm at. I'm rural enough that, you know, pretty much everybody out here is all volunteer. So, you know, that's not bad. A good buddy of mine works at the other end of the county. He runs in 2 companies, and he's got one of them transitioned to a paid day staff during the week. They seem like they're working it out okay because it sounds like they had a couple guys from the volunteer side transition over. Or the resource pool was so local, you know, everybody kind of knew each other anyway. I haven't heard too much, but I would imagine having it split would be very tough. Especially, you know, if it ends up, you know, if you are fighting for money for things or can't agree on, you know, how money's getting spent, that would be tough. But one of the things you said that really jumped out at me, which is the big thing, is you said, you know, negative is easy, you know, and we all know it, you know, that's what's going to breed. So at least it'll breed faster than the positive side. So, you know, I know for me, you know, I go through times, I don't know, I don't feel like I fit in. I feel like I have a little different mindset. So, you know, I just try and gravitate towards the people that are like-minded and have that positive energy. And it's one of those things, you know, if I'm taking care of myself and keeping myself happy and I'm doing it with maybe 1 or 2 people, you know, it's going to start spreading. So it's easier said than done, but man, you just got to keep smiling.
I think that's normal, man. And John, you've been doing this a lot longer than I have, right? But I think part of the problem is we painted some picture that, like, you know, 30, 40 years ago, that everybody showed up to the fire department every day, volunteer career with bells on, and, you know, it was all high fives and, you know, good games, and we can't wait to get dirty and train for 12 hours a day and eat, breathe, you know, sleep the demon, right? So I think maybe we've kind of advertised it wrong, and that's the expectation. Like, if you're into it, you expect that, oh, well, you know, it's just not the same fire service because 50 years ago, everybody loved coming to work every day and they give you the shirt off. You don't think guys fought back in the day? You don't think they had mutts or people that had bad days or bad assignments or bad patches in line? I mean, come on. I mean, that's just not practical. So, you know, I don't subscribe to the positive or the negative approach. I'm the realist guy. If it sucks, it sucks. If it's good, it's good, right? And most of our days is that balance of the in-between, I think. So, you know, John, I'm missing out. If it was like that back in the day, let me know, but I don't see how it's possible.
You know what I think has changed? Life has changed and it's gotten quicker. Yeah. Technology has definitely caused, I would say, more stress, right? Because now instead of a bad let's just say bad news used to travel via phone, right? And you had to go someplace to get inside to get a phone, or if you didn't have access to inside, you had to go find a payphone, and then from there, and then information went from the phone to the cell phone to the pager. Now it's instantaneous, and you can text whatever, and whatever you put out there, it's throughout the world. You put one tweet out or one Facebook post or Instagram post, and it's either not liked or inappropriate. You're done. You're not pulling that back. So, and
the other side too, right? You can't get away now. And I think that's the bigger thing, right? You have a bad day at work, like it's instantaneous. It's a text, it's Bluetooth, it's Facebook, it's where's Mark, what's the running joke, right? Like the shift that, has been off for 2 days already heard about it before it got out of the firehouse, right? So to me, stress wise, and don't get me wrong, technology is cool, right? Look what we're able to do.
Look what we're doing now.
Yeah, you could argue, I don't know, maybe it's good or bad, right? But 30 years ago, your fire department was the best thing in the world. Why? Because you didn't know anybody past 2 or 3 departments down the road. So it had to be, right? And that was a bad thing and a good thing, as we found out through line of duty deaths, right? Tactics and stuff. But to me, I mean, I remember growing up, if somebody called the house, they weren't there, you went out and found them. That might be a 5-minute trip down the neighborhood. That might be a 5-hour excursion checking all the usual places, right? So what happens today when you're stressed, you're upset, you had that bad shift, that bad call, and you just want to be left the hell alone for a little bit. It is impossible. And God forbid you turn your phone off, right? Then they're like, oh, he's off the reservation. His phone.
All the
off.
FBI.
Yeah, we got to go find him. He needs intervention. It's like, man,
Ping his phone.
I'm so tired. So yeah, I think to me, that's the bigger part of it, right? Like you said, though, you have one oops, right? You type send one time wrong and it's screenshot and triplicated and you're done. It's over. Look at the politicians, right? But the side to me that sucks the most is stress wise, there's no time to de-stress because there's always somebody calling or emailing or inquiring, and God forbid you don't answer on your first day off in 5 minutes, he's a shit employee. He doesn't answer his phone. He doesn't check his email. It's like, God, I just want to go get a bite to eat, right?
It's funny. My wife runs a prayer group, and if she doesn't put a evening prayer out, next thing you know, the FBI is knocking on the door because they think she got abducted or something.
Yeah, man. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, I think it's cool that we're trying to recognize when people are off more, right? And we're assessing mental health better, right? Like everything else, right? The polls, right? I always talk about the polls, right? 20 years ago, we didn't give a shit if you were hurting. Now we're so overly sensitized to it. It's like, I think Marc smiled when he shouldn't have. Something's wrong, right? Let's go, get him assessed and, get him a shrink. So, and I'm not trying to, downplay it at all. I just think sometimes common sense needs to prevail, right? We're all humans. We all cope different. We all act different, and kind of what EJ was getting at there, you said you kind of, you feel like you're maybe, an outcast, I guess, for lack of a better word, right? Or you're not kind of in that clique so much, but again, I go back to, I bet you 50 years ago there was cliques in the firehouse, right? I bet you there were guys that got along better than others. So I think we all naturally gravitate towards the people we align with or we share values with. And the harder part to me is how do you kind of branch that out to bridge that gap with the people maybe you don't, right? And trust me, there's people in every fire department you probably don't want to share anything in common with, but the equalizer to me is that what should be the common ground for all of us is the job, right? It doesn't matter where you come from, what your preferences are, what you do off duty, right? The job should be that thing, and to me, that's what we need to preserve is making that job that common ground.
Well, I think too, if you're being that guy you want to be, maybe you're not there all the time, but when you're there, you work hard, you're upbeat or whatever. I like to think it's not going to be so hard to find them people because then people are going to come to you. If you're setting that good tone, hopefully, they're coming to you, and you're not going to have to go find them. But again, like I said, it's easy to sit here and say it, man. It's harder to actually do it, day in and day out.
Yeah. Hey, Marc, I'd like to chime in if I can.
Oh, I would love for you to chime in, Chief.
Oh, well. So just on the volunteer side, Marc came up a few years ago with Jared and did a day for us and do some training. And I probably belong to the smallest, if not the smallest, volunteer department in our county, Wasac. We're called the Blue Crew. We got blue fire trucks. We get made up. We get called the Smurfs. We get called a lot of shit. So I think, this is my 38th year being a volunteer. And I did it. I was at the firehouse. My dad has 62 years. So, I grew up in Wasac. I live in Wasac. I've been here all my life. I did have a career with the state of New York as a ESU type job when I retired from. And after I retired, I was fire chief still here. And for some reason, the light went on in our community 2 years ago. And we actually took in 19 new members in 2019. And I really don't know what the answer was or why, but it seemed like a lot of people wanted to join. And not everybody stayed. You're not going to keep everybody in the volunteer service. People come and go. They want to, they want the free t-shirt, they want the license plate, so on. But I think the thing that I practice the most myself is I'm big into leadership quotes and listening to leadership. I love Marc's page. The message he sends, I think, is spot on most of the time. And I just expect myself to do everything that I expect others to do. So, if I'm going to expect guys to go out and gals we're going to go out and do an SCBA drill, then my ass will have an air pack on and I'll go do it with them. I'm a working chief. I mean, Marc had said about, the chief truck that I have, I got 200 feet of pre-connect with a smooth bore nozzle on it. I have speedy dry. I have a whole complement of tools. I have, everything I can do prior to the apparatus arriving that I can get done myself. It's important in a volunteer service. Again, our daytime crew, I might be the youngest guy. I'm 56. So, it is what it is. But I think once you get to the point where the shit starts getting to you, and you just got to know when to say when. And I just did that. I stepped down back in July. I needed a break. I've been doing it a long time, and when it becomes, start to become toxic, and it's not really around the firehouse, but when you bring it home, and your marriage suffers. And I'll say it, I separated with my wife, and the firehouse a lot of times came first. And just my experience, you got to make sure you take time for yourself. And as EJ said, if you don't have the time to do it, don't do it. But don't always feel that you're an outcast, because you know what, we're all outcasts in our own way. We call ourselves the misfits. A lot of our guys in our department really come from a vast different background. We have engineers, we have school teachers, and we have people with GEDs. So, but for the most part, we get the job done. Sometimes flying by the seat of our ass, or our pants. But, here in Dutchess County, we're fortunate enough to have some good mutual aid responses. So like on our first alarms, we have automatic mutual aid coming with an engine from each station from our mutual aid people, because nobody has the help. So you really have to rely on your help and your neighbors. And as you said, Marc, earlier, that years ago, you didn't know anybody past a couple fire departments. And here we are now with people, from throughout the company being able to do this. And I think it's great. And, I use our Facebook page. I don't post any calls. I don't post anything about incidents. It's all what we do about training and positive stuff. There's nothing in there that's negative, anything that, my philosophy is, I'm posting pictures of an auto accident or a fire or anything that's an incident. My philosophy is, you know what? I'm there. I'm responsible to take care of the citizens in my fire district. It's their worst day. And for me to post pictures of a fire that they've just occurred at their house is, in my eyes, it's exploiting them. And that's just my social media policy, and that's how we do it. But training you can get creative when you do training, though. I mean, we did last year over 3,000 hours of training for a volunteer department, and that's a lot for a small department. But you got to be flexible. I'm retired, so I can go up on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock and work with a handful of people. I can go on Tuesday morning and work with the daytime people. I can be there at 7 o'clock on Thursday evening to work with the groups that are working during the day. So, but that's the thing about being a volunteer chief, I think, is if you're going to do it, you really have to you got to be in all the way. You can't half-ass it. And when you half-ass it, it shows in your morale and it shows in your whole department. That's about all I got. I mean, I can go on all night long, but
Appreciate it, Chief. That's, like I said, I went down this rabbit hole because I just don't know that a lot of the career guys out there appreciate the state of the volunteer fire service. And even if they started, like I said, I started in the volunteer service, and after closing in on 2 decades in the career service, right? Like, it's easy to forget that until you're immersed in it again. So I just know a lot of the time the messages I get on on social media and the after class questions when we had conferences going on still and stuff is always, well, how does this tie into the volunteer service? And it's really hard to teach to that in a lot of ways or discuss it when that's not what you do every day, right? Like, my day is different than a volunteer's day. And so we always talk what we know. And, I've been hearing more and more of the volunteer firefighters kind of getting into that national kind of spotlight, especially during COVID with the podcasts and things, but even teaching at these conferences. And I think, you talk about how hard that is, right? How hard is it for a volunteer to even, go teach somewhere, let it, outside of their jurisdiction, on the national level, but those are the voices we need to hear. Right. And then, I get it. The volunteer services, we're probably going to have to figure something out, going forward in a lot of areas, just because the age is not there and the young people are moving away or they're not joining for whatever reason, but we'll have to cross that bridge when it comes. But I just kind of challenge all the career guys that teach and have a voice and have all these, outlets to, try to work in that volunteer perspective a little bit more, because it's important that, your message translates across the fire service as a whole, not just to one section. Right. And I'll never tell you that I know something, or I can sit in your shoes when I'm not, but that doesn't mean that I can't say, hey, how does this translate over to you? So, and, I think it, if we want to pull it full circle here and kind of wrap it up and start where we left with Pablo, right, with fitness, right? Marc, you just hit a great point as far as the mental fitness, right? Sometimes you do have to step away. EJ said it, Chief Christensen said it, everybody has that point. And, on the career side, we get, 2 or 3 days off in between all the time, most times to figure it out. But when you're working a 9-to-5 job or a, 12-hour shift somewhere else and still going to the volunteer department, that bucket gets filled a lot faster, and you've got to know when to step away. And there is a shelf life, I think, to be a chief anywhere. Honestly, we're seeing that on the career side too, right? You don't have 20 and 25-year chiefs anymore. You have 5 and 10-year chiefs, because it's just, kind of like people say with Congress, right? At some point, you're just out of touch. You're not as effective anymore. And it may not mean that you can't go back to do that later, but it means as of right now, you got to kind of take that step back, get back on the rig a little bit, be the rank and file, and kind of get new ideas, new perspective, and maybe you go back down there. So, staying, physically fit like, Pablo, but also, like you said, mentally fit and knowing when it's time to just say, hey, got to take a break. And if you can give 1 day a month, that's better than no days a month, right? But if you're shot and you leave, that doesn't help the community at all. So,
I think you hit that perfectly regarding the idea of mental fitness and physical fitness together. And I think one leads with the other. I know in times when I've been either coming back from injury or not in the best physical shape, my mental shape is not the best. And after working out and getting the physical aspect, going, that tends to help the mental aspect. They talk about dopamine and all the other, chemicals in our brain and everything else that are released, the endorphins and stuff like that. But some of the most passionate people I've seen in the fire service are definitely on the volunteer side. And there's some really big passionate guys in the career side. So that's one thing that the fire service has. They have that passion to help people, to better the profession than when they started. And I think that's one of the biggest keys to what we've been doing, actually, with bringing the idea of culture to the people that are listening to us, passing the passion that you have, that I have, that Pablo and Sean have for our job, our career. And again, when I teach a lot of volunteer fire departments, and one of my lines are, listen, you're the fire department. You're the professionals that show up. There's no 912. They call 911. You're it. You're the ones showing up. So you got to be the professionals. And no matter what, it's a job, it's a career, it's a calling. And the passion that we have for this should take care of what we've got going on today, tomorrow, and into the future of making our fire service better.
Well said.
Awesome, man. Pablo, you got anything here as we close it down?
No, brother, just I agree wholeheartedly with what John just said, and definitely physical and mental fitness go hand in hand, and I'm, if we had another 2 hours, I would, like that. I am a one of many poster childs for it, man. I've battled with my own demons, my own physical demons and mental demons, and I feel I'm happy to say I feel like $1,000,000. I feel good. I feel mentally good, physically good. I'm in a good place. I'm in a blessed place, and that a lot of it ties in with I got off my ass and I started tapping into my own potential. Finally, via physical fitness, which in turn led to better mental health.
Awesome, bro.
That's
John, you
great.
got anything else?
No, I appreciate you guys sticking with us tonight, even though we couldn't bring the headliner in. Ryan being doing what Ryan's got to do. And again, we'll talk about the career side real quick. How much overtime can you get and not get burnt? When does that have that affliction on the family? Mm-hmm. I heard it a couple of weeks ago from my wife. I was doing every other day, it seemed like, whether I was teaching or catching overtime or in the station. And then it adds up and it causes that stress and that friction. And again, it's important that we got to take care of ourselves. Like Chief Christensen said, you got to take care of yourself, take care of your family, because without them, we don't have anything. Right. So I want to thank everybody that came on tonight. EJ, thank you for speaking up. Alan, Chief Christensen, Pablo, and Marc. It's always great to see you guys and chat.
Yeah,
thank you guys.
John, on a personal note.
Yeah, go ahead.
It does not surprise me that your father would still be crawling down hallways. I know him a long time. He's a good guy, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Hell, that doesn't surprise me. I don't even know him. That doesn't surprise me.
I heard talk once that I'm not. The apple does not fall from the tree, right, John? I mean,
no, it definitely doesn't, and I'm super proud of him. It's funny. He started, just a little background, and we can jump off of this. Little background. He started as a civil defense in the CDs, the Fire Auxiliary, for the city that I work in. They were a volunteer aspect. So anytime that there's a second or third alarm, they'd come in, man hoses, pick up hoses, and stuff like that. This was back in the late 60s, early 70s. Jump into 2000 when I actually got hired by the city where my dad was, where he started. I think it's great. And he taught me so much. And now it's fun on the roles reversing a little bit, because he teaches with me in our company. And it's just great to see that he still has that passion at over 70 years old.
Awesome.
So guys, thank you very much for listening to us tonight. I think we're going to shut the recording down. We can talk for a couple more minutes and then start our next crazy week. What's going to happen?
Yep. And I just to the update, we haven't scheduled a date with Ryan to go again yet, just because his department is getting hit so hard right now. I didn't want to impose on him to come up with a concrete date. So it may be October or November or December before we're able to get Ryan on, but he is going to be a guest on the show. And like John said, I thank all of you for bearing with us. I know this is not what you expected. We didn't even have time to kind of give you updates. I hope it worked out. I know we kind of jumped from, fire service fitness to, fixing the volunteer fire service, but yeah, so I'm going to stop the recording, but as we do every week, I'm going to lead the meeting up. If you guys want to stick around and spitball or bust chops or whatever, go ahead. So I'm going to stop it right now, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, boys. Appreciate you
Thank
guys.
you.